Hello and welcome to another episode of New Game Plus. Here we are inside of our houses still for I want to say the tail end of COVID, but who actually knows when any of that is going to calm down. But we're still making television, we're still bringing it to you as long as we're allowed to do so, which I guess sometimes you just don't know if that's ever going to be the case. Anyway, for this episode, we have Moving Out, another great Australian game, another cooperative game that's either sure to make you or lose your friends very, very quickly. We have a quiz time event with Donald where no doubt they'll cheat me out of something again, just no doubt, as well as a review of Predator Hunting Grounds. But for now, something completely different.
I think there's a tendency for all of us to misidentify what we enjoy hoping will happen versus what we actually want to happen. We may watch a show and really enjoy wanting to get that couple together, but if the show actually got that couple together, we wouldn't be happy. So you've got to make sure to distinguish what people think they want to have happen versus what will actually make them happy. And a lot of times the frustrated desire is part of the great joy of TV watching. So we're not trying to make people frustrated when we don't give them what they ask for. We're trying to make them happier than they imagined they could be.
Like no one wanted Buffy's mum to die, but the body
Right.
is one of the best episodes of Buffy.
Yeah, but the body, it's an excellent example. The body is beloved. You couldn't have had the body without Joyce dying. You couldn't have had the beautiful, amazing, tragic moment of Spike saying to Buffy, I tried to save you every night, if the Angel relationship hadn't ended and the Spike relationship started, and then Buffy's death and coming back, like all those moments that made people scream and cry had to happen to get to the moment that made them cheer. Absolutely.
Hello and welcome to another edition of Quiz Time event. Hopefully the outcome for this particular game doesn't leak. My name is Donald and I am joined for this last fortnight's worth of news recapping by Matt, Jamie and Jason. How are you all?
Good. Yes, not as bad as the Last of Us 2 plot, but good otherwise.
He's actually going to spoil it live on TV.
Oh, that's the point.
No,
Why
I'm just
would I?
kidding.
No.
Turns out The Last of Us was the friends that we made along the way.
Maybe it was the last of US.
Have you read them? I hate to be that guy. You can't be spoiling, Donald. Yeah.
That gives us a good segue just to get straight into this past fortnight's worth of gaming news trivia with question 1. Last of Us 2 leaked. Coincidentally, on what date will The Last of Us 2 finally be released?
Jason, whatever my
I
name
believe
is.
Jamie was there first.
Oh my god.
I know it's coming out in June. I want to say June 16th.
No, you're close though.
Can
Jason.
I
Jack
June
Matthew?
20?
No, Matt.
Matt, June the 17th.
Jason was closest with it. It will be coming out on June 19th.
Oh fuck! I knew it was one of them.
Right.
Yeah.
I'm
Is
actually
that
looking
June
forward
19th
to the
Australia
Last of Us
time or
card.
America time?
Probably worldwide at this rate.
Worldwide, yeah.
Fine.
And besides, who knows? We might get another streak.
So we're getting the usual 8 hours early. Is more the point is if it was 19th in America, well, it's 20th here. Shut up.
No bonus points for you, Jason.
Shut up.
Now, what was the apparent cause of 160,000 Nintendo accounts being compromised?
Oh, I just know they were compromised. I didn't know there was an actual. They'd figured out what it was.
Yeah, I didn't know. I actually don't know if there was a reason on that. That's actually
Matt, you want to
news
take a guess?
People were really angry about the Animal Crossing Easter event and the spawn rate of the
That
eggs.
was close. They only protested that by hocking Nintendo Studios with eggs in direct contravention of social distancing guidelines. No, the correct answer was there were legacy Nintendo Network ID logins which were compromised, and that's how people got into Switch accounts.
So was it only the accounts that had those legacy tie-ins, or was it like then they used that as a backdoor?
People had found ways to compromise those accounts. They found the passwords and what have you.
Right.
Okay, well, that's
Yeah,
one
by
of
the way-
the positive things. Always use multi-factor authentication. You know what's
Always
more
use 2FA. Good advice.
Yes, you know what's more annoying
tempted to
than
give you a bonus
MFA?
point for that one card, but no, I won't.
Well, screw you. I'm gonna hack into your account next time and see how you feel.
By the way, this is coincidentally happening about almost 9 years to the day after the infamous PSN hacks, which is appropriate given that Nintendo's internet is about 9 years behind the rest of the world. Now, Office Create and Planet Entertainment are currently in dispute over what?
Jamie.
Jamie got in there first.
Basically, the entire existence of Cooking Mama, Cooking Star, whatever the hell it is, the new Cooking Mama game for Switch
That
and
is
apparently
correct.
not PS4.
Yes, that is correct. Planet Entertainment released what's it called, Cooking Mama Quick Star, much to the chagrin of Office Create, who own the rights to the Cooking Mama franchises. They have been in very public dispute ever since, protesting, like complaining about unicorn food, among other things.
And Bitcoin mining apparently, but I don't know how
Which
that
was never real.
By the way, Jason, Matt, for breaking news bonus points, which game was released onto the North American Nintendo eShop today without its developers'
Matt.
knowledge? Matt.
Lab Zero's game Indivisible.
That is correct. Indivisible, what was released onto the eShop without its developers' knowledge. That developer can.
Oh right, yeah, that's right, yeah, that's the
can't
it's the
catch a
Skullgirls
break.
people, isn't it?
That's right.
Yeah, right. That's right. Yeah. Because I was like, I remember that because it's on Game Pass, and so yeah, it's interesting that it's suddenly. So who did it then? The publishers or something?
Yeah.
Probably 505.
505.
Ooh.
Good top quality, good shit.
27.7 million people logged into Fortnite to see who performed.
Jamie.
Jamie got in there first.
No, they didn't. They didn't go to see Jamie. No.
No, that's true. So went to go see Travis Scott.
They went to go see Travis Scott. That is correct, Jamie. Although I don't know why he's only played one game of NHL hockey yet.
And
Yeah,
Blink,
we'll
I
Blink-
realize I'm looking at the wrong Wikipedia page.
but Blink hasn't done concerts in years. Like,
That
yeah.
was pretty funny. Yeah. I'll pay that.
Yeah, I mean, there's like multiple attacks to that joke that you could have gone with here.
Yeah.
Rock Band 4 had to pull the DLC for Juiced
Jason.
by Lizzo because of Jason.
Because it said a word
because of
that is something you're only allowed to say when you reach a certain level of popularity on YouTube and Twitch, and that word is, of course, I can't say
Yeah.
it. I'm way
That
too.
is-
I can't
Could
say
you
it.
repeat
That is
that?
still correct though, Jason. Yeah, there was an uncensored N-word that was featured as singable vocals. And much like your classic heated gaming moments, this one also involved an N-word at a bridge.
Oh.
And that's a lie because it actually takes place in the second verse, but let's not let facts get in the way of a okay goof.
True.
Which pair of games recently had their source code leaked?
Jamie.
Oh God.
Was Counter-Strike Global Offensive.
And I actually can't remember the other one. I'm feeling really bad about
I
Matt.
will let the others come in for the steal.
Matt.
Matt?
So Counter-Strike Global Offensive was the first one.
Yep.
Yeah. And the second one was it's another Valve game that people like. Team Fortress 2.
Correct. Team Fortress 2 and CS:GO had their legacy source code leaked into the public.
I'm gonna say on my recording, and you're gonna love this. Jamie's voice doesn't come through. He's using that fucking RTX shit, isn't he? Because it doesn't come through on my goddamn thing.
Oh, are you accusing
laughing,
someone else
and
of
I can't
cheating
hear
now,
him.
are you?
He's laughing and I can't
Oh,
fucking hear him. He's
oh.
cheating already. You're all fucked. You're all fucked in the head. It makes me mad.
It's gonna
Well,
be
what
even
is the
better when he
cheating to
loses
this
this.
one?
Like I can't hear him. He keeps talking and I can't fucking hear. Crazy.
Have you
Crazy.
heard it again, Jason?
Now I can hear because you're actually talking in your microphone. But Donald's still giving you answers correctly. It's fine. Doesn't matter.
This
Well,
so
I'm also
dumb,
saying
this
that
one.
it is still anyone's game as we come into the final question, the final round. There is currently a Kickstarter campaign to fund a dungeon crawling game based on the Wolfenstein games. In that spirit, I'm going to name you a string of franchises and you need to tell me whether they got their own Monopoly board or not. Let's start with you, Matt. World of Warcraft. Did that get a Monopoly board?
It did.
It did. Jamie?
It did.
Jason?
Yeah.
You are all correct. World of Warcraft is a monopoly. Skyrim, did that
Well
get a
done.
monopoly?
Yes.
Matt? Jamie?
Yes.
No.
Jason? I am not giving you, Jason, the point because, yes, Elder Scrolls V Skyrim did get a special monopoly edition.
Of course it did.
Yep.
no.
Uncharted. Matt?
It didn't.
Nope.
Jamie? Jason?
That's a no.
No, did not. There is not an Uncharted board. As in, what would even be the Monopoly at that point? Is it a Mayfair rather?
I guess stolen
back of
cultural
Cutter's
artifacts. Congratulations,
the back of,
you own all culture. Like, yeah.
The back of Cutter's bald Jason Statham head.
Ooh.
That's Mayfair. That's like
Oh,
the board's
yeah.
Mayfair.
Oh yeah. Assassin's Creed, did that get a Monopoly board, Matt?
It didn't.
It didn't. Jamie.
That's a tough one because it seems popular enough to do so. I want to say yes.
Yes,
No,
and
I'm gonna say yes also.
yes, it did get its own Monopoly
Whoa.
board. I don't know what the Mayfair is in that one because
Animus.
yeah, no, that's it. Yeah, that's it. Nolan North is the Mayfair all along.
Of course.
It's probably already featured in all these games, by the way. Dragon Quest, did that get a Monopoly board or not, Matt?
It didn't.
It didn't.
Not even in Japan.
Jason.
Nah.
Yep, you're all correct. Dragon's Quest has not gotten a Monopoly board, which is actually kind of surprising. Hey,
Not really.
Is Monopoly big in Japan?
anyways, Mass Effect has that gotten its own Monopoly edition, Matt?
I'm gonna go out on a limb and say that it did.
It did. Jamie.
I reckon it did.
I did not hear any of that.
Oh,
Yes.
now he doesn't hear it. Now he doesn't fucking hear
I
it.
did. I said yes. It did get a
That is
Monopoly
a
board.
yes from you, Matt. That was a yes.
Sorry,
And
what?
Jason.
Yeah, it's normy enough, so yes.
Yes, it did. So it did, yes, get its own Monopoly board. And finally, Minecraft. Did that get its own Monopoly board, Matt?
Without a doubt, it did get a Monopoly board.
Jamie?
100%.
Jason?
Yeah.
You should have gone the contrarian option there because Monopoly has not received a Minecraft edition yet, surprisingly.
And you know, in my head, I was. It doesn't matter. Yeah.
Whatever.
In your
Although-
head.
Although, breaking news. This is a true story. There is a Monopoly board that is coming out that is based on the Jim's Mowing franchise.
I did
Aussie
see that.
as.
I did see that.
That's probably the
Yeah.
Aussiest
Yes.
board that we've ever had.
Well, short of the
Aussier than
Bunnings
the Melbourne one.
And the Mayfair in that is Africa, and that'll only make sense if you've ever read up on Jim from Jim's Mowing.
The Mayfair, oh, pardon me. The Mayfair is actually termite removal, but
Mate, don't make it weird. Don't make it weird.
Disgusting.
Come on, Glee. Come on, Glee. Come on, Don.
I need to dig up on that one.
Yeah.
And so I think
Dig up,
Jamie
stupid.
got one more. What's the correct one out of that? So
Yes.
I'm going to give him 3 points and going to give Jason and Matt each 2 points. So at the end of that all, Matt is on 4 points, Jamie is on 5 points, and Jason is on 4 points. So Jamie, you win this edition of Quiz Time Events.
Hooray.
Yeah, watch me
So-
say congratulations, Jamie. See how there's noise? That's what you sound like. That's you. That's you. What you sound like.
Endless salt coming out of you. That's your stand. Endless salt right
Turn
now.
off Nvidia can suck my
I
dick.
was just
Turn
gonna
off
say
fucking
the
GTX
big,
shit.
The big
This'll be
tip. The big
interesting
tip
if
there
local
is
recordings
basically
turn out to
turn on your RTX and you'll win every single time.
Yeah, because you don't have
I
to
can't
actually
wait to
say
go back
words and
into
Donald
this
will let you
video.
win. Fucking hell.
And so I'd like to thank NVIDIA for their sponsorship. No, I would however like to thank Matt, Jamie, and Jason for joining me for this edition of Quiz Time Event. And I'd like to thank you, the viewer, for joining us on this edition of the Quiz Time Event. Join us in another fortnight where we'll bring you another fortnight's worth of gaming news in trivia quiz form.
Now, there's a lot of franchises in the world that either have gotten games previously and they've not been great, or have gotten games that a couple of them are great. Like, okay, let's be real. The game I'm talking about is Predator. There's Predator Hunting Grounds at the moment, which has just come out recently for PlayStation and PC, and it is another asymmetrical multiplayer game, which seems to be one of those flavors of the... I don't want to say flavors of the month because it's not really flavor of the month, but it's flavor of the current climate, flavor du jour, if you will. And basically, it sees you playing either as the Predator or as 4 operatives who are completing a mission around this like small area, and the Predator is there to try and obviously kill you and claim the trophies of your skull. So it's exactly kind of what everyone's always wanted out of a Predator game. The problem with these games, and as we've seen with stuff like Friday the 13th, is the licensed titles tend to have a lot more restrictions on what they can and can't do. So sometimes they tend to be lackluster games being carried by a license. Now, Predator's had some great games in the past. I still swear that the 2010 AVP game was decent, but obviously AVP 1 and 2 in the old PC days were great games as well. So there's precedent for good Alien games, good Predator games. But this one isn't good. It's just okay. And I think the biggest problem that it faces is mainly one of balance. The game itself, when you're playing as an operative, it can be a bit boring. Especially, I played a lot of the beta, and now I've played a fair bit of the game that's released, and they've tweaked it a little bit. But the missions feel a bit boring. It's basic AI. They're very simple. They run at you, but they now actually do damage. Now they actually present something of a threat. Whereas in the I find from the beta, that wasn't the problem. The biggest problem still for the balance is when you're playing as Predator. If there are 4 people and they literally stay as a group and they keep kind of a 5 meter gap between each other, like if they socially distance appropriately, you can't beat them. Like none of your blasts will kill them well enough. You won't be able to do enough damage to either down them or even to like murder them properly. And so all they have to do is sit together. So you can wait for someone to kind of go off and be a straggler. And the few times that I've died or anyone's died, it's usually been two people and 2 people are splitting off to do different objectives. But the problem is, it just feels like the balance isn't quite there. I think they'll get there. I think over time, it'll eventually start to become much more balanced in that sense. But right now, it's not there. So it's hard to just say jump on board and like grab it right now, unless you're a huge Predator fan. But if you are a Predator fan, it's really cool to play as Predator. It's fun to play as operatives and team together to kill a Predator. It's just a little bit unbalanced either way. So with that in mind, I figured I'd invite Matt on to discuss other asymmetrical multiplayer games that we've had that have come out and how they've managed to overcome those issues. Matt, thank you for joining me.
Yeah, no worries.
So the big one that always come out to me, because it was my main era of moving into those kind of games, Splinter Cell were probably the first one to do this kind of asymmetrical multiplayer in like a first-person shooter specifically. But obviously we've had other examples since. Alien versus Predators, as mentioned, is another one where it was different teams of humans versus predators versus aliens.
Even Left 4 Dead,
Yep.
Left 4 Dead's versus mode as well.
Yep, yeah, exactly, that kind of stuff. So there's definitely precedence for it, and I think that it can work if done well. But I think that, like I mentioned, Friday the 13th, and I know we've had this discussion at length between Friday the 13th and something like Dead by Daylight, where I find Dead by Daylight, it looks a bit clunkier, and a little bit less quote-unquote, and I'm saying this with a real tongue-in-cheek, a little bit less polished, because it's drawing its own canon, it's making its own hero, so they've got to try and make them fit. Whereas Friday the 13th is Friday the 13th. It has 10 movies to draw from, and some crossover movies, and 30 years of mythos. But I would argue that Dead by Daylight's probably a much better game,
Well,
yeah.
yeah. I mean, you'd think that with all that lore that it draws upon, that it's going to be a strength for that particular game, or making it based off existing IP.
Yep.
But I think one of the biggest issues, so with Ilphonic, they have both developed Predator Hunting Grounds as
Yeah.
well as Friday the 13th, and
Yeah.
I think it's their biggest drawback is that they have to restrict themselves to the one universe.
Yes.
And Dead by Daylight's strength is that while it may look a little bit more clumsy, particularly from like the lore and mythos end,
Yep.
the fact that they can just restrict themselves to collaborations with Ghostface from Scream, Leatherface from the Texas Chainsaw Massacre,
Yep.
that they don't really need to go all in from a lore perspective. So sometimes it is tricky to develop games with meaningful changes for like Jason in Friday the 13th, for example, where a lot of his characters or a lot of his different iterations, like Space Jason from Jason X, they don't really they don't really differentiate from each other when you really think that they should. Like they have no right to play the same.
Yes, correct. And that is probably the big thing that gets to me with it is Dead by Daylight reminds me a lot of how fighting games do collaborations. It's like, here is this character that you know and love from King of Fighters or whatever, playing in our engine, but they're still familiar, but they play our way. Like, this is our world, we control how this world works, and this is how they fit into that. Whereas, like you say, with Predator, you can't create your own canon. You can't suddenly introduce a weapon and go, oh, by the way, in our Predator, they have this ability, or they have that ability, which would help balance it. It has to be, well, you've seen a spear in this movie, and you've seen a bow and arrow in this movie, and you've seen a club in this movie, and we have to stick with these things. There's certain rules that have to go across. Luckily, with Predator, the rules on the hunt are a little bit wider. Do you know what I mean? Like, they've established that they'll go to different worlds and they'll seed those worlds and they'll do all that. So you've got a little bit more to work with there, as opposed to Friday the 13th, where, like you say, it's fan service, and yet, because of the restrictions of the license, they had to restrict how fan servicey they got with it.
And in your review, you mentioned a really good point about balance too. And when it comes to these asymmetrical multiplayer games, there's certain aspects of the killer as well as the survivors that really need to be. So obviously they're not going to be the same. I mean, that's the whole definition of being asymmetrical. But Dead by Daylight does it so well in the sense that like for a Dead by Daylight, for example, the killers might have a lot more perks, and
Yep.
and they might be a bit more inventive with being sneaky and stuff like that, and survivors have got to play it a lot more straight. But on top of that, the killers also have a far more restricted point of view that is essentially like the point of the way that the game is designed.
Yep.
It kind of helps level the playing field a little bit without kind of making everything feel too samey. With a game like Friday the 13th, on the other hand, though, the survivors don't actually feel like they have any chance.
Yes.
And Jason feels perhaps a little too powerful
Yep.
for a game that really should be striking a good balance. Otherwise, you're not going to get as many people playing. You know, there's also going to be a massive imbalance of people choosing, you know, killer and survivor. I know right at the moment, I mean, Predator Hunting Grounds has only been out for what, 2-3 weeks or
Yeah.
so, and there's still more people wanting to play as Predator than the actual like what's it called, the survivors. So
Yes. And the
it's
funny
like
part of that is you mentioned the way the Friday the 13th. The problem with them is that the survivors are probably a little bit too weak. If anything, in Predator, the survivors are a little bit too strong. And I think that's the funny part for me, is that they've got one side and the other, and they've gone either way on it. That's why I still think there's legs in it. As long as the Predator license doesn't get pulled from them by Disney, I think it's in a good place. But
Yeah.
it's just that weird, like it's in that weird space where they just can't find that happy medium, and it's really hard. I mean,
Yeah.
Evolve died doing that. You know, Splinter Cell was was one of the first, so it kind of got away with a few like tricks that it was doing. I don't know. I think like you mentioned, Dead by Daylight, the advantage of it is it's had enough time to make its mistakes, learn what works,
Yeah.
learn what hasn't, and then become a good game as a result.
Yeah, I'm the biggest fan of Dead by Daylight, and like while I'm not the biggest fan of Friday the 13th, I know that Illphonic are a pretty decent developer, and they have it in them to make a really good game. So hopefully, if they try this asymmetrical multiplayer dig the third time around, let's hope it's lucky.
I thank you, Cardi, and yes, by the way as well, if you do get Predator, don't say all the lines in the multiplayer lobby unironically, because that sucks. Because no one wants to
actually
hear
do
get to
it.
the
Don't
chopper.
listen to Jason.
Oh my god, don't encourage him. Fucking hell. And that does conclude another episode of New Game Plus. Don't forget to check us out at newgameplus.tv. New Game Plus TV, one word, no spaces, at all of the other Instagram, social media, things like that you like to go to. And don't forget to check out more Murasaki Gamer content on New Game Plus TV as well. We'll see you guys next week.